Lesson 4, the community where you live.
Part 1.
How can I get to the post office? I have a special rule for travel. Never carry a map. I prefer to ask for directions. Sometimes I get lost, but I usually have a good time. And there are some other advantages. I can practice a new language, meet new people, learn new customs and the like. I learn about different styles of directions every time I ask, how can I get to the post office? Here are some illustrations of those differences. Tourists are often confused in Japan. That's because most streets there don't have names. Outside big cities, people most often use landmarks in their directions. For example, the Japanese might tell travelers something like this. Go straight down to the corner, turn left at the big hotel with the sushi bar and go past the fruit market. The post office is across from the bus stop, next to the fast food fried chicken place. In the United States, people might give directions in different ways according to their region or community. In the countryside of the American Midwest, for example, there are not usually many landmarks. There are no mountains, so the land is very flat. In many places, there are no towns or buildings for miles. Instead of landmarks, residents of the flatlands will tell you directions like north, south, east, and west, and distances like 2 miles. In the states of Kansas or Iowa, for instance, people will say things such as, take this road here, go straight north for 2 miles, make a right turn, and then go another mile in a northeast direction. Keep to the left around the curve, then merge with local Route 12. In most cities, however, people will name the streets, number of blocks, even the number of stoplights or stop signs. People in towns or cities might say, go straight for 5 blocks, turn left at Main Street, go to the 3rd stoplight and turn right. That's 6th Street. The post office is 2 blocks up on your left. Many people around the world can get street directions on the internet. People in Canada, the United States, and many European countries can go to a website to get directions. They type in a start point and an end point for their trip. Then they get instructions like these. Take I-40, the interstate highway, 26 miles. Go straight, east. Enter Texas. Keep left northwest 8.7 miles. Turn right. Merge onto Turner Turnpike. At exit 5B, take ramp right towards Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. They print out these directions and carry the papers with them, sometimes with a map. Without a computer printout, on the other hand, some people in Los Angeles, California may have no idea of distance on the map. Residents of this Pacific Coast area are almost always in their cars, so they measure distance in time. How far away is the post office, you ask? Oh, they might answer, I guess it's about 5 minutes from here. You say, yes, but how many miles away is it, or how many kilometers or blocks? They rarely know, or they can seldom say. Sometimes people in Greece do not even try to give directions. That's because tourists seldom understand the Greek language. Instead, a Greek person may motion or gesture or say, follow me. Then that person will lead you through the streets of the city to the post office. What if a person doesn't know the answer to your question about the location of a place? A New Yorker might say, "Sorry, I have no idea," and walk away quickly. But in Yucatan, Mexico, not many residents answer, "I don't know." People in Yucatan may believe that a quick "I don't know" is impolite. They might stay and talk to you. And usually they'll try to give an answer, sometimes a wrong one. A tourist without a good sense of direction can get very, very lost in this southern region. One thing will help you everywhere, in Japan, the United States, Greece, Mexico, or any other place. You might not understand a person's words, but you can probably understand the body language, like facial expressions, gestures, movements, and so on. He or she will usually turn and then point his or her finger in a particular direction. Go in that direction and you'll find the post office. Maybe.
Part 2. The laws of communities. Laws are rules for people and communities. For instance, in every country and culture of the world, there are laws against serious offenses, murder, robbery, violence against people, and the like. These laws make sense. They are necessary for safety and health, for community order, and for good human relationships in communities. They are probably similar all over the world. On the other hand, many laws and rules differ from country to country, from area to area, or even from one community to another. Some common illustrations of this variety are laws about driving, drinking alcohol, eating, smoking, shopping, money, people's rights, and many others. For instance, a legal action in Lima, Peru may be against the law in Seoul, Korea. And an illegal activity in an Asian community may be perfectly legal in a European city. On the other hand, laws may be the same in various countries, but vary in different cities or states of the same nation. Every country has traffic rules and signs, but are they the same? In most countries, there are street and road signs with information about location, directions, dangers, cautions, and rules of the road. These signs tell drivers and pedestrians, walkers, what to do and what not to do, including speed and parking limits, places to stop, when to make turns, and other procedures. However, specific local traffic laws and practices usually differ around the world. For instance, in Japan, Indonesia, South Africa, the United Kingdom, and other countries, steering wheels are on the right side of vehicles, and cars and trucks drive on the left side of the road. In other countries, such as the United States, Saudi Arabia, Taiwan, Italy, and Mexico, steering wheels are on the left side of vehicles, and cars and trucks drive on the right side of the road. An illustration of a local traffic law is the regulations for pedestrian and school crossings in some Mexican cities. Drivers rarely respect the rules, so for safety, people cross streets only at stoplights, on roads with little traffic, or on pedestrian-only bridges across wide avenues. What about regulations and customs in other areas of people's lives? Some communities have a lot of rules about legal and illegal individual activities, even drinking and smoking. For instance, in most places in the United States, no one under 21 can buy or drink alcohol legally, even beer or wine. In some communities, it's illegal to drink a can of beer on a public street. It's also against the law to have an open alcohol container in a car. Similarly, smoking is no longer legal in public places, such as workplaces, restaurants, airports, and on airline flights within the United States. In Japan and other countries, there is a legal age for smoking. In some Muslim countries, all smoking is against religious law. On the other hand, many people around the world drink and smoke, including more and more teenagers and young people. Customs and habits do not always go along with health or safety regulations or laws. In the beginning, most local laws have a clear purpose or reason. Even so, after many years, these same regulations can seem very strange or unusual. Here are some examples of old rules about personal relationships. In the backcountry of New Zealand, a man with many sisters can have the same number of wives. How is this custom legal? The man can give one sister to each of his wives' families. In some Indian communities, it is illegal for a young man and woman, married or not, to hold hands in a bus or train station. If they do, they have to pay an expensive fine. The law in some Chinese towns doesn't allow a man to give a woman a chicken leg during a meal. He can give her other chicken parts, but not a leg. And in Worland, Wyoming, a state in the United States, no married man may go camping alone or with his friends. He has to take along his wife. These old laws are probably still in effect, but not many people follow them.
Lesson 5, Home and Family.
Part 1.
A short history of the changing family. Past definitions of family. Like the community, the family is a social institution. Long ago, human beings lived in loosely related groups. Each group had a common ancestor, a family member from the distant past. But for over a millennium, 1,000 years, there have been two main types of families in the world, the extended form and the nuclear form. The extended family may include grandparents, parents, and children, and sometimes aunts, uncles, and cousins. In other words, relatives living in the same house or close together on the same street or in the same area. In contrast, the nuclear family consists of only parents and their biological, related by blood, or adopted children. Because of the industrialization in the 19th century, the nuclear family became the most common family structure. Kinds of families today. Today, there are many different kinds of families around the globe. Some people live in traditional families, that is to say, a stay-at-home mother, a working father, and their own biological children. Others live in two-paycheck families, that is, both parents work outside the home. There are many single-parent families. In other words, only a mother or a father lives with the children. Still others have adoptive or foster families. That is, adults take care of children not biologically theirs, or blended families. In other words, divorced or widowed men and women marry again and live with the children from their previous or earlier marriages. Some kids have step-parents, that is, mothers or fathers related to them by marriage instead of biology. In other families, some youngsters under the age of 18 have to take care of kids, either their own or their younger siblings, brothers and sisters. In different countries around the world, There are also same-sex partnerships, with or without children, childless marriages, unmarried live-in relationships, communal living groups, and so on. The early 20th century. What caused the structure of the family to change? Here is an example from the Western world. In the early 1900s in the United States, the divorce rate, that is, the percent of legal endings compared to the number of marriages, began to rise, and the birth rate, that is, the number of births per 100 or 1,000 people, began to decline. In other words, couples stayed married for fewer years, and they had fewer children. Women often chose to get an education and take jobs outside the home. Decades, 10-year periods, later, the same things began to occur in other industrialized countries, and then developing countries of the world as well. The 1930s and 1940s. The decades of the 1930s and 1940s were difficult years in both industrialized and developing countries. Many families faced serious financial problems because the heads of households lost their jobs. During World War II, 1939 to 1945, millions of women had to take care of their homes and their children alone. Because so many men were at war, thousands of these war widows, that is to say, women whose husbands were away at war, had to go to work outside the home. Most women worked long hours at hard jobs. There weren't many perfect families. They had problems. After World War II. During the next decade, the situation changed in many places. There were fewer divorces, and people married at a younger age and had more children than in the previous generation. Men made enough money to support the family, so a mother seldom worked outside the home when her children were small. Children began living at home longer, that is, until an older age, usually after high school or even college. The traditional family was returning in the United States, it seemed, as in many other countries. The end of the 20th century. In the years between 1960 or so and the end of the 20th century, however, there were many new changes in the structure of the family around the globe. From the 1960s to the 1990s, the divorce rate in the Western world greatly increased, and the birth rate fell by half. The number of single-parent families rose, and the number of couples living together without marriage went up even more. At the end of the 20th and beginning of the 21st centuries, young adults of some economic classes started staying with their parents longer, marrying later, and having kids at an older age, if at all. The family of the future. Many people today would like the traditional two-parent family back. That is to say, they want a man and a woman to marry for life. They also think the man should support the family and the woman should stay home with the children. However, few families now fall into this category. In fact, if more women decide to have children on their own, the single-parent household may become more typical than the traditional family in many countries. Also, unmarried couples may decide to have more children, or they might take in foster children or adopt. And because people are staying single and living longer, often as widows, there may be more one-person households in the future. On the other hand, some people believe similar events happen again and again in history. If this is true, people may go back to the traditional extended or nuclear family of the past. Others think the only certainty in history is change. In other words, the structure of the future family could begin to change faster and faster and in more and more ways.
Part 2.
Time with the family, past and present. The sun was rising. A woman got up from a straw mat on the floor of her simple two-room family cottage. Her husband and their 4 children were still asleep on the mat. There were 5 other children. The couple gave 2 of them to a family with too few workers. The other 3 died long ago. The woman pushed aside the family goats. When she started the fire for cooking, the man and the children got up. While the daughter helped with the housework, the sons went outside to work in the fields with their father. They could see a castle not far away. The family lived under the protection of the master of the castle. They weren't his slaves, servants, but they paid him taxes. There was no schooling, so they couldn't read or write or get jobs in cities. During the long workday, they took breaks only for meals. Occasionally, they went to the village center, where they laughed and talked and played games. At night, people of the community got together around big fires. They told stories about the past. Most families used to live this way in England over 800 years ago. In the first half of the 20th century, the Japanese family was much more traditional than the typical American family. Young people didn't even used to date. In other words, they didn't go out together as couples. Instead, they had arranged marriages. Their parents chose their husband or wife. Maybe the couple fell in love after they got married, and maybe they didn't. Either way, the wife had children and stayed home with them while the husband supported the family financially. Often the husband and wife and their children lived in an extended family situation, 3 generations in one crowded house. Today, life in Japan is similar to that of many other industrialized countries in that many women work outside the home and young people choose their own mates. In the past, and in part today, much of Saudi culture has been different from Western culture. Under Islam, women should behave modestly in public, where they are often separated from men. Women play an important role in the home and are generally expected to focus on the family. In the 1960s, the government began a national education program for girls, and soon after that, education was available to all females. Today, there are many more interesting job opportunities for women. A few years ago, a sad thing happened. A young American woman left her family for career reasons. She moved far away. For this reason, a 36-year-old divorced father has custody of his 2 children, 11 and 8 years old. He works long hours as a waiter, including weekends. On his days off from work, he goes to a local community college. He's studying to improve his job skills so he can make more money for his family. At night, he does his homework at the same table as the children. But who takes care of the kids in the evenings when their father is working or going to school? His extended family. His mother, other relatives, and his new girlfriend help out as much as they can. He thinks his girlfriend, who is from Mexico, his home country, is good for his family. He doesn't want to date Anglos or anglicized women because he thinks they value their independence over motherhood. He wants a wife with traditional religious values like his mother.
Lesson 6, World Cultures.
Part 1.
Cross-cultural conversation. You want to talk about culture? Alan began the conversation in a proud voice. The United States is only a few hundred years old. Americans don't really have any culture. I mean, Americans are interesting, but they have zero culture. He made the sign for nothing with his hand. I agree with you, said Werner. He was pointing at Alan with his finger. Old Europe of the last 1,000 years. Now that's where the great culture was. The age of architecture, the magnificent historical cathedrals and castles are beautiful. It's essential to see the works of world-famous painters and sculptors from previous centuries in our excellent museums. And everyone should experience our classical literature and music in the best theaters and concert halls. Excuse me for interrupting, Alan, Werner apologized, but I just gave a perfect example of a long and significant cultural history. Camille spoke up. You know, we don't call a short millennium a cultural history. The real beginning of culture, significant civilization, was in the Middle East and Africa over 5,000 years ago. He continued, waving both hands in the air. Ancient communities not only knew how to create magnificent architecture and art, they also made amazing scientific and technological discoveries. They invented things. For instance, they figured out how to write and do mathematics. They studied astronomy, the science of the skies, the sun, and the planets. They invented the calendar. They even had medicine. The ancient religions came from that area too. Their achievements made world civilization possible. Those were the civilizations that gave humanity the most meaningful cultural legacy. May agreed with Camille. In a soft but knowing voice, she added, "But the really important science and technology began to develop in Asia and the Americas. While the ancient Chinese were building walled cities, they organized the first governments. They invented tools for work and weapons for protection. And the native peoples of the Americas had very, very old civilizations and societies. That was ancient traditional culture." Ancient culture? That's a contradiction in definitions. Grinning, Karen objected in an enthusiastic, friendly way. She gave a contrasting opinion. It's impossible for culture to be old or traditional, she argued. The opposite is true. Culture isn't dead, it's alive. Culture is modern, culture is now. Kenji was starting to fall asleep, but suddenly he was fully awake. I agree, he said, interrupting Karen enthusiastically. You tell them, said Karen, appreciating the support for her point of view. For emphasis, she nodded vigorously. Culture is worldwide, it's universal. Kenji went on in his clear speaking style. He had a wide smile on his face. Take today's food culture. With our global fast food, I have to say, everyone eats the same. And because of the worldwide media, movies, TV, CDs, compact discs, the internet, everybody knows the same information, plays the same music, enjoys the same stories, even the jokes. And it's like people everywhere want to buy the same clothes, all because of advertising. A beautiful young couple in jeans and bright Hawaiian shirts anywhere in the world, eating hamburgers and French fries with their friends from many countries. Finally, we have a global culture, and tradition has nothing to do with it. Nadia, however, was of another opinion. You want to call modern movies, music, food, and clothes culture? She said sweetly but convincingly. Those things don't describe culture. Culture isn't about the sameness of people in communities around the world. It's about their differences. Like, it's important for people to greet one another in various ways, and they need to use different titles and follow a variety of social rules in their relationships. Some societies are formal while others are informal or casual. Some groups are friendly and others aren't. And another example is the diverse use of language. Is it direct or indirect? How do communication styles include motions, gestures, facial expressions, and other body language? And customs are so interesting. They're what people of different national groups do in their everyday lives and on special occasions like holidays or celebrations. Culture means cultural diversity. What makes life amusing? It's the variety of cultures around the world, its contradictions and opposites. Yeah, maybe so, contributed Alan as politely as possible. On the other hand, he started to say, that does make some sense, interrupted Werner, beginning to smile, as long as you don't forget the arts, architecture, painting, literature, music. And if you also include ancient civilizations and traditions, added Camille with a pleasant expression on his face. He didn't like to contradict Nadia or any of his female friends. Well, we can certainly have opposing viewpoints, concluded Karen, and yet we still enjoy exchanging ideas. Everyone was smiling, and they wanted to talk a lot more.
Part 2.
Clues to World Cultures. An Irish woman was visiting tourist places in a Latin American city when she got a terrible headache. She knew what medicine she needed, so she went to a local pharmacy. The pharmacist was waiting on another customer when she came in. The Irish woman patiently waited her turn. While she was standing there, 2 other customers came in, then another, and then 3 more. Each time, the pharmacist turned his attention to the new people. He did not greet the Irish woman. He never said, "I'll be with you in a minute." After about 20 minutes, the woman couldn't stand the pain in her head any longer. "Hey, I've been here a long time," she said loudly, very annoyed and insulted. "Why is everyone ignoring me? I need service too," she shouted rudely, impolitely. A Middle Eastern businessman and his brother invited an American guest to their family home for dinner. The American got there on time and enjoyed the interesting conversation, the tea, and the attention. But as time passed, he got very, very hungry. Finally, he politely whispered to his host, "Excuse me, but are we going to eat dinner?" "Of course," answered his host. "We usually serve the evening meal around 9 o'clock, and when we have guests, we enjoy the long conversation before dinner." At the dinner table, everything was delicious, and the hungry American guest ate quickly. He emptied his plate, and his host put more food on it. As soon as he cleaned his plate a second time, the host gave him more. After several plates of food, he could eat no more. He was going to burst. "Please, please, please, don't give me any more food," he begged them. "I finished the food on this plate, but I can't eat another bite." Even then, his host insisted. The guest accepted a little more and ate it with difficulty. Finally, the supper dishes were removed. There was more conversation with more tea and coffee. At about midnight, the server brought a pitcher of ice water. The tired American knew it was okay to thank his hosts and leave. A group of international students were attending college in Europe. They had a long time between semesters for travel, so they decided to hitchhike as far as they could in other countries. In many places, they were successful. They put their thumbs out or pointed them backwards and smiled. Friendly drivers stopped. As soon as the first traveler got a yes answer from a driver, he motioned with his hand or fingers for his friends to come, or he held up both thumbs in an OK sign, or made a circle with the thumb and the next finger of one hand. The young tourists saved money, saw a lot of the countryside, and had interesting conversations and experiences. On the other hand, in Greece and Turkey, the visitors were not so lucky. Few drivers stopped to give them rides. Instead, most people ignored them. Others gave them mean looks from their cars. They seemed almost insulted that the visitors were begging for rides. A few drivers shouted terrible words at the travelers. 2 even got out of their truck and started a fight. The students thought the drivers were very rude. They felt confused, afraid, and unwelcome. After a few days, the students took the bus back to the countries where they were studying.
Lesson 7, Live a Long Life.
Part 1.
The secrets of a very long life. Introduction. There are several places in the world that are famous for people who live a very long time. These places are usually in mountainous areas, far away from modern cities. Even so, doctors, scientists, and public health experts often travel to these regions to solve the mystery of a long, healthy life. In this way, the experts hope to bring to the modern world the secrets of longevity. Hunza, in the Himalayan mountains. Hunza is at a very high altitude in the Himalayan mountains of Asia. There, many people over 100 years of age are still in good physical health. Additionally, men of 90 are new fathers, and women of 50 still have babies. What are the reasons for this good health? Scientists believe that the people of Hunza have these 3 main advantages or benefits. 1. A healthful, unpolluted environment with clean air and water. 2. A simple diet high in vitamins, fiber, and nutrition, but low in fat, cholesterol, sugar, and unnatural chemicals. And 3. Physical work and other activities, usually in the fields or with animals. The Russian Caucasians and Vilcabamba. People in the Caucasus Mountains in Russia are also famous for their longevity. Official birth records were not available, but the community says a woman called Surba lived until age 160. Similarly, a man called Shirali probably lived until 168. Moreover, his widow was 120 years old. In general, the people not only live a long time, but they also live well. In other words, they are almost never sick. Furthermore, when they die, they not only have their own teeth, but also a full head of hair and good eyesight too. Vilcabamba, Ecuador is another area famous for the longevity of its inhabitants. This mountain region, like Hunza and the Caucasus, is also at a very high altitude, far away from cities. In Vilcabamba, too, there is very little serious disease. One reason for the good health of the people might be the clean, beautiful environment. Another advantage is the moderate climate. The temperature is about 70 degrees Fahrenheit all year long. Furthermore, the wind always comes from the same direction. In addition, the water comes from mountain streams and is high in minerals. Perhaps as a result of this valuable resource, the region is rich in flowers, fruits, vegetables, and wildlife. Differences in the diets of people with unusual longevity. In some ways, the diets of the inhabitants in the three regions are quite different. Hunzukuts eat mainly raw vegetables, fruit, especially apricots, and chapatis, a kind of pancake. They eat meat only a few times a year. In contrast, the Caucasian diet consists mainly of milk, cheese, vegetables, fruit, and meat. Also, most people there drink the local red wine daily. In Vilcabamba, people eat only a small amount of meat each week. Their diet consists mostly of grain, corn, beans, potatoes, and fruit. Even so, experts found one surprising fact in the mountains of Ecuador. Most people there, even the very old, consume a lot of coffee, drink large amounts of alcohol, and smoke 40 to 60 cigarettes daily. Similarities in diet. However, the typical diets of the three areas are similar in three general ways. 1. The fruits and vegetables are all natural, that is, they contain no preservatives or other chemicals. 2. Furthermore, the population uses traditional herbs and medicines to prevent and cure disease. 3. The inhabitants consume fewer calories than people do in other parts of the world. A typical North American eats and drinks an average of 3,300 calories every day, while a typical inhabitant of these mountainous areas takes in between 1,700 and 2,000 calories. Other possible reasons for healthy longevity. Inhabitants in the three regions have more in common than their mountain environment, their distance from modern cities, and their low-calorie natural diets. Because they live in the countryside and are mostly farmers, their lives are physically hard and extremely active. Therefore, they do not need to try to exercise. In addition, the population does not seem to have the stress of fast city work and recreation. As a result, people's lives are relatively free from worry, and therefore illness or other health problems. Thus, some experts believe that physical movement and a stress-free environment might be the two most important secrets of longevity. An additional health advantage of life in these long-lived communities may be the extended family structure. The group takes care of its members from birth to death. The validity of longevity claims. Nevertheless, some doctors theorize that members of especially long-lived populations have only one thing in common. They don't have valid official government birth records. These health scientists think there is a natural limit to the length of human life. In their theories, it is impossible to reach an age of more than 110 years or so. Therefore, they say, claims of unusual longevity in certain groups are probably false.
Lesson 8, The Media and Entertainment.
Part 1.
How the visual media affect people. Introduction. Benefits of the visual media. How do television and the other visual media affect the lives of individuals and families around the globe? The media can be very helpful to people and their children who carefully choose what they watch. With high-quality programming in various fields of study, science, medicine, nature, history, the arts, and so on, TV, videotapes, and DVDs increase the knowledge of the average and the well-educated person. They can also improve thinking ability. Moreover, television and other visual media benefit elderly people who can't go out often, as well as patients in hospitals and residents of nursing facilities. Additionally, it offers language learners the advantage of real-life audio-visual instruction and oral comprehension practice at any time of day or night. And of course, visual media can provide almost everyone with good entertainment, a pleasant way to relax and spend free time at home. Media replaces other activities. Nevertheless, there are several serious disadvantages to the visual media. First of all, some people watch the tube for more hours in a day than they do anything else. In a large number of homes, TV sets, as many as 5 or more in a single household, are always on. Many people watch TV for many hours a day or spend hours playing games or surfing on their computers. They download music, movies, and other forms of entertainment. Instead of spending time taking care of their kids, parents often use a video screen as an electronic babysitter. As a result, television and video can easily replace family communication as well as physical activity and other interests. The effects of TV on the mind. Second, too much TV, especially programming of low educational value, can reduce people's ability to concentrate or reason. In fact, studies show that after only a minute or two of visual media, a person's mind relaxes as it does during light sleep. Another possible effect of television and videotapes on the human brain is poor communication. Children who watch a lot of TV may lose their ability to focus on a subject or an educational activity for more than 10 to 15 minutes. Maybe it is because of the visual media that some kids, and adults too, develop attention deficit disorder, ADD, a modern condition in which people are unable to pay attention, listen well, follow instructions, or remember everyday things. The effects of violence in the media. A third negative feature of the media is the amount of violence on the screen, both in real events in the news and movies or in TV programs. It scares people and gives them terrible nightmares. The fear created by media images and language can last for a long time. On the other hand, frequent viewers of action programming get used to its messages. They might begin to believe there is nothing strange or unusual about violent crime, fights, killing, and other terrible events and behavior. Studies show that certain personality types are likely to have strong emotional reactions or dangerous thoughts after some kinds of entertainment. They may even copy the acts that they see on violent shows, start fires, carry and use weapons, attack people in angry or dangerous ways, and even worse. Dissatisfaction with normal living. Because of the visual media, some people may become dissatisfied with the reality of their own lives. To these viewers, everyday life does not seem as exciting as the roles actors play in movies or TV dramas. They realize they aren't having as much fun as the stars of comedy shows. Furthermore, average people with normal lives may envy famous media personalities who seem to get unlimited amounts of money and attention. Also, media watchers might get depressed when they can't take care of situations in real life as well as TV stars seem to. On the screen, they notice actors solve serious problems in hour or half-hour programs, or in 20-second commercials. Boredom with real life. Yet another negative feature of modern television is called trash TV. These daily talk shows bring real people with strange or immoral lives, personalities, or behavior to the screen. Millions of viewers, including children, watch as these instant stars tell their most personal secrets, shout out their angry feelings and opinions, and attack one another. TV watchers seem to like the emotional atmosphere and excitement of this kind of programming, as well as the tension of the real but terrible stories on TV news magazine shows. A newer version of this kind of entertainment is called reality TV. In shows like Survivor, The Amazing Race, American Idol, and The Apprentice, real people compete for attention, fame, and other rewards. What effect does frequent viewing of such programs have on people's lives? It makes television more real than reality, and normal living begins to seem boring. Disadvantage of the media: addiction. Finally, the most negative effect of all of these kinds of visual media might be addiction. People often feel a strange and powerful need to watch TV, download visual material, or play a DVD even when they don't enjoy it or have the free time for entertainment. Addiction to a TV or computer screen is similar to drug or alcohol dependence. Addicts almost never believe they are addicted. Even so, truthful media addicts have to answer yes to many of these questions. Do you immediately turn on the TV set or computer when you arrive home from school or work? Do you watch a lot of programming that requires little focus or thinking ability? Can you concentrate on another topic or activity for only 10 to 15 minutes at a time? Do you enjoy the action and violence of the media more than activity in your own life? Do you feel envious of the lives of well-known TV or screen personalities or the participants in reality TV shows? Do you feel closer to the people on TV than to your own family members and friends? For you, is TV or video the easiest and therefore the best form of relaxation or fun? Would you refuse to give up your TV viewing and internet connection for $1 million? Would you like to compete on a TV reality show more than do anything else?
Part 2.
Media stories. Story plot A. Marion, who works in a real estate office, is depressed about her life, especially her unhappy love relationship. Because she is feeling ill, her supervisor lets her leave early. He gives her $40,000 in cash from a house sale to put in the bank on her way home. However, temptation gets the best of the moody young woman. With the cash in an envelope, she packs her bags and drives out of town. On a dark, lonely road, a severe thunderstorm forces her to stop at the run-down Bates Motel. There is a scary old house high on a hill behind the motel, with the form of an old woman in a rocking chair at the window. Norman Bates, the motel owner, is happy to sign in a guest, but his mother shouts at him angrily. After a conversation with Norman, Marion goes to her room. When she is in the shower, the bathroom door opens. In a very famous, very bloody murder scene, the shadowy figure of an old woman pulls aside the shower curtain and stabs the motel guest to death. Horrified, Norman cleans up the room, puts Marion's body in her car, and pushes the car into the swamp. Worried about her and the stolen money, Marion's sister, lover, and boss send out an investigator, who finally arrives at the Bates Motel. Suspicious of Norman's strange behavior, the investigator goes into the scary house, where the dark shape of an old woman at the top of the stairs kills him too, with a long knife. Others come to investigate. After many suspenseful scenes, they discover that Norman's mother is a skeleton. The murderer in the old woman's clothes was Norman Bates himself, who has turned more and more into his mother. Story Plot B. After a hurricane sinks their ship off the coast of Africa, a British couple finds their way to land with their baby son. However, the parents are killed by a wild animal. A gorilla, the largest of the human-like monkeys, finds the baby, brings him home to her mate, and raises the helpless human in the jungle. As a result, he grows to adulthood in the natural ape community. Nevertheless, the young man's peaceful life in the jungle soon changes. To study African wildlife in its natural environment, Professor Porter arrives with his daughter Jane and a hunter named Clayton. When the explorers meet the jungle man, at first they think he is the missing link, a being halfway between an animal and a human being. Therefore, they are surprised to discover that he is as human as they are. When he begins to feel strange, unfamiliar emotions towards Jane, the man that grew up in the jungle becomes very confused. He wants to be with his own kind, but doesn't want to leave the gorilla family that raised him, especially since Clayton sees the apes not as friends, but as animals to hunt and kill. When Jane has to leave with her father, the ape man is very sad and upset. Even so, he saves the white people when they are captured, and Jane stays with him in the jungle. Story Plot C. The Starship Enterprise, a flying vehicle that travels to other galaxies at amazing speeds, stops at a space station for repairs. The four Beanars, beings with computerized brains, that are doing maintenance seem worried. Suddenly, they realize the ship is about to explode and order evacuation. Everyone leaves except Picard, the captain, and Riker, the second man in command, who don't hear the alert. After everyone else reaches the starbase, the space station, the problem mysteriously corrects itself and the ship disappears. As the crew on the starbase try to figure out a way to recover the Enterprise, the captain and his helper discover what has happened. They instantly transport themselves to the bridge, where they find the Beanars unconscious, dying, and asking for help. The ship reaches Benares, the Beanars' planet, Because of an exploded star that destroyed the planet's center computer, Benares is dead too. The Benars needed the Enterprise to store the data from the planet during the shutdown time. Picard and Riker managed to get into the Benares file and restart the computer. The Benars come back to life. Undamaged, the ship returns to the starbase. Story Plot D. It is the middle of the 19th century, a very romantic time of honor and passion. Matilda Peñalver y Beristain is an aristocrat, a member of the nobility, the most wealthy, powerful class in society. She falls in love with Adolfo Solis, an army soldier with no fortune. Matilda trusts that her fair, kind father will let her marry her true love. However, Augusta, Matilda's mother, objects. With her powerful connections, she sends Adolfo to prison. Lying, she tells her daughter that Adolfo is married with children. Because their family is facing bankruptcy, Augusta wants Manuel Fuentes Guerra, an honorable and handsome young man who has just inherited a vast fortune, to be her son-in-law. Confused and desperate, Matilda marries Manuel. Soon, Adolfo escapes from jail. After a frantic, intense search, he finds Matilda. Posing as the new ranch administrator, he recognizes her husband as an honest, fair, and decent man. At that point, Manuel and Matilda discover Augusta's deceit in their marriage. But in the meantime, Matilda's feelings for Adolfo are beginning to disappear. She is starting to fall in love with Manuel. Heartbroken, Adolfo accepts reality and leaves the ranch. Matilda announces she is pregnant. However, to be continued.
Lesson 9, Social Life.
Part 1.
Meeting the Perfect Mate, Part 1. For the past month, I've been taking a university graduate course called Social Structure. It's a very popular class. We've been discussing friendship, social life, dating, marriage, and other relationships through the generations and throughout the world. One of our assignments is to examine the ways that people meet potential spouses, husbands and wives. I've been interviewing students on campus all week as part of my study. I'm amazed at what I've been hearing. First, I talked with my roommate in the dormitory, Usha, an international student from India. "What's one way to meet a possible mate?" I asked her. "Well," she said, "one method in my country is to have an arranged marriage." "A what?" I asked. "I know you can match a tie to a shirt or 2 socks after you do the laundry, then they're a match. But people?" "Sure," she replied. "There are still arranged marriages these days, and there were a lot more not too long ago. My parents, for example, met each other for the first time on their wedding day. My grandparents chose their children's spouses and arranged the weddings." "Do you mean that the bride and groom weren't in love?" "That sounds awful." "Weren't they worried?" "Maybe a little bit," Usha said, "but they accepted each other. Then, fortunately, they learned to love each other. They've had a good, successful marriage for the past 30 years. This happens in a lot of arranged marriages. You know, even today some Orthodox, very religious young people, Jewish and Muslim and Christian, marry this way. I shook my head. Amazing, I said. The next person that I interviewed was Bill, a guy in my business management class. I meet a lot of women in dance clubs, at least I used to, he said. The environment was exciting, and I used to go every weekend if possible to dance or talk or just listen to music. That seems great, I said. I thought so too at first, he said a little sadly. But on the other hand, the music at these places was very loud. Many people drank, so they didn't talk. They shouted and didn't listen much. Both the men and the women got kind of aggressive. And it was so disorganized. So I've been trying speed dating instead of bars and clubs. What on earth is that? I asked, amazed. Well, you go to a nice place with tables and chairs. You get to meet a new person every 6 minutes. Then you list the people you want to see again. Does it work? No, it's much too fast for me. I don't move that quickly. And I'm not a speedy thinker or talker either. You know, you ought to talk to my brother Freddie. Here, you can get him by speed dialing my cell phone. Bill handed me the cellular telephone. I speed dialed Freddie. Oh, I do just about everything on the internet. You know, the World Wide Web, volunteered Freddie very quickly. You meet potential dates and girlfriends and mates on the web on your computer? I asked, not really so amazed anymore. Yeah, there are plenty of people to communicate with in cyberspace, Freddie began enthusiastically. With the most up-to-date technology, laptops and power notebooks and even camera and video phones, you can do it anywhere. At home, at work and school, at cafes, in the library. You can go into chat rooms and talk by typing. Slowing down, Freddie paused to think. On the other hand, I'm not such a good writer. It's hard, you know, to use those little computer devices. Anyway, well, who knows what is real there and what isn't? Who knows? Like, who might be dangerous? He continued, starting to sound a little discouraged. It seemed he was talking more to himself than to me. I thanked him and we said goodbye so I could continue my search for the perfect way to find the perfect mate. The internet? Never, said Julie, a student who works part-time in the campus bookstore. I prefer to make new friends at places where people have the same interests. I met my boyfriend at the health club, for example. And it seems that the healthy atmosphere of the gym is continuing into the relationship that I have with him. We work out together, hang out at the pool and hot tubs, go to the health food juice bar, and so on. There are so many active, attractive people there. Maybe you should try it. That sounds wonderful, I said. Yes, Julie said. I guess so, but to be honest, there's one problem with this arrangement. What? I asked. The truth is that I really hate to exercise, so I don't want to go to the gym anymore. What's my boyfriend going to think when he finds this out? To be continued.
Part 2.
Meeting the perfect mate. Part 2. What is the best way to meet the perfect husband or wife? Computer dating services are the answer, said my friend Sarah, who lives down the hall from me in the dormitory. They provide a great way to meet people. The biggest advantage is that you have a lot in common with the people you meet through a computer. The computer can match you up with someone of your same intelligence, cultural background or religion, age, personality, values, and so on. If you want, you can meet someone who is famous, exciting, optimistic, healthy, polite, any characteristics that are important to you. You can match your preferences in lifestyle, food, nature, sports, movies, and everything else. And you can ask for a professor, a scientist, a computer specialist, an artist, or... Have you had many successful dates so far? I asked. To tell the truth, she said, not really. I think I made a big mistake when I filled out the application form. I didn't want to miss a wonderful guy because of an answer that was too specific, so I was careful to write very general answers. What do you mean? Well, there was a question about height. I said anyone between 3 feet 5 inches and 7 feet 5 inches. Then there was a question about recreation. I answered yes to 147 interests. From classic historical architecture to motorcycling. I wrote that I liked tennis, swimming, the beach, the mountains, the desert, health food, junk food, ethnic foods, eating out, cooking, staying home, traveling, the arts, TV comedies, quiz shows, crime dramas, family life, single life, and on and on and on. You know, I think that the computer got confused. It hasn't found a date for me since I sent in the application. And what about online video dating? Asked Sarah's roommate Sandra. Online video dating? I asked. How is that possible? Well, I hear that you film yourself and talk about yourself. You know, your background and your interests and things like that. Then you post your video online and people can view it, and you can view other people's videos and email the people you want to meet. I answered, more videos in my life. Well, you could place a personal ad, Sandra continued. In the newspaper? Sure, a friend of mine did that. He wanted to get married, so he figured it out by statistics. He decided that out of every 10 women, he liked one. And out of every 10 women he liked, he might fall in love with one. Therefore, to get married, he just needed to meet 100 women. Did it work? I asked. There was no answer. Last, I interviewed a guy in the cafeteria. His name was Felix. Supermarkets, he told me. You're kidding, I said. No, I'm serious. I meet a lot of potential dates over the frozen pizzas in the convenience food section. Also, it's easy to make small talk over the cabbage and broccoli in the produce section. We discuss chemicals and nutrition and food prices. Sometimes this leads to a very romantic date. I slowly shook my head. It is strange, very strange. I didn't respond because I didn't want to be impolite. That evening, I talked with my roommate Usha. You know, I said, I think maybe your parents and grandparents had a pretty good idea. An arranged marriage is beginning to seem more and more attractive to me.
Lesson 10, Sports.
Part 1.
The Ancient Olympics. In a world troubled by political conflict, the Olympic Games have symbolized peace and unity throughout their history. In the ancient Greek Olympics, youthful athletes honored the gods with demonstrations of their speed and coordination. Based on the highest ideals, the Olympic Games were offered in the spirit of peace, for the love of sport and honest, fair competition. Although the Olympics have changed over time, you might be surprised to learn that, according to historians, there are many similarities between the original Olympic Games and the modern ones. Here are 2 articles to compare the Olympic competitions of past millennia with the widely celebrated Olympic Games of the 21st century. The Olympic Events, Athens, Greece, the 4th century AD. As the greatest of our national festivals comes to a close again, here are some of its highlights and history. Since 776 BC, our Summer Olympic Games have been held every 4 years at the sanctuary of our ruler Zeus on Mount Olympus. As usual, this year's games began with the promise of fairness by athletes and judges to Zeus. There was a ceremony before the statue and altar of the great god. There were contests for young boys. Participants and spectators met with old friends. There were speeches, poetry, tours, feasts, parades, and singing. Next came the competitive sports events, the pentathlon, 5 track and field events including the discus throw, javelin throw, the long jump, running, and wrestling, boxing, the 4-horse chariot race, horse racing, and an extreme combination of wrestling and boxing. Under a full moon, there were sacrifices to the king of the gods. On the 5th and final day, prizes were awarded, wreaths made of a special olive tree branch from the sanctuary. Some winners received prizes worth money. There were more feasts for and by the winners. Then the competitors and spectators went home, mostly on foot, through the mountains. Women in the Olympic Games. Most of the athletes at this year's events were young men, of course. Even so, unmarried girls competed in foot races at the festival of Hera, Zeus's wife. There were also spectators at the festival of Zeus. The owner of the winning chariot team and the trainer of the winning horse in the races were female too. On the other hand, married women were not allowed in the sanctuary of Zeus. They didn't want to be thrown off a cliff, so no one broke this rule. The politics of the Olympics. In my opinion, the most important achievement of the Olympic Games has been its peacefulness, not only at the Games, but in all of the Greek world. Of course, the actual events fill only 5 short days. Even so, during the 3 months before and after the competitions, there is an agreement to protect travelers, so there is usually no fighting between or among competing cities. Although there have been exceptions, in its long history of over a millennium, the ancient games have never been cancelled for political reasons. In general, even during the times of major wars, the games have contributed to the cause of peace for well over 1,000 years.